first was something incremental, of course, and then it would be the same on the second, would that cause someone to build maybe a single, one story as opposed to a two-story? I mean, that was your, so I want to talk about that for a moment. Would that, because that was the original objective, was to go down Polo Drive, most of the homes are one story.
And Gulf Street Road.
So what do you think of that idea?
I just think it's, I don't know that there's a way to, I mean, Skip, what example, I mean.
Well, Bill's response to that was that it still doesn't avoid the blocky appearance of a house, but I think you could have a combination. First of all, you could disincentivize two-story houses by requiring, if they're going to go 2 stories, that the full thing has to be 35-foot setback instead of 30, and 20 or whatever you all decide on a setback instead of 15 on the sides. That's quite a disincentive to going 2 stories. And in addition, I think you could have a provision, and this is just pulled out of the air, that in the event they do go 2 stories, that the second story can be no greater than 70% of the square footage of the first story.
Which we've got at the moment.
Which you've got. So I think you could have a combination of both of those. The first being a disincentive, but if they still decide to go 2 stories, that they've got to do 70% of the square footage of the bottom story.
Which is what we have. Yeah.
Right. The only thing that's different about what you propose is there's a penalty, in my example, for going 2 stories. You're just requiring them, if they go 2 stories, to set back an additional 5 feet.
For the 2-story section.
For the 2-story section. I'm saying if they go 2 stories, their whole house has to go 35 foot from the front instead of 30. It's just an alternative proposal.
I mean, I think that's a very good suggestion. The only thing is that I hate to see houses that don't have the articulation and depth. In other words, I think if we ended up with that, we'd have the plane of the house would become very flat. If you push back the 1-story sections to 35 feet too, because it would just make the house very flat on the front. You wouldn't have the step backs to the second story, which is what we already have. But I just want to get that. My point is this. I just want to get that.
I think you're right. I think that's what you're going to end up with. Large single planes. And to add to your discussion, the idea of a plane measurement, the measurement of a plane before a break, I'm trying to visualize that in the review. That does not seem difficult to do. I mean, because you have the linear size of the house and you have the architect give you the sections of the plane. I think the articulation in the front is extremely important.
And I think I would suggest the articulation could be one dimension separate from what Mr. Randolph's suggesting, because once we have the whole house, it's got to go back 35 feet. Then when you look at the front of the house or the sides, they all have to have some articulation. And I don't know, say every 10 feet, I don't know. I mean, and if somebody isn't in compliance with that, and they have some legitimate reason to make it a little wider because of detail they put on it, obviously we would consider it. But I think you can deal with the block-like front or sides by having this provision that deals with the plane. I don't know, is that what you're saying?
On the front, I'm talking about.
Oh. Well, I mean, even on the side, you don't want.
Well, I guess you could.
The sides would be addressed by
Right.
this.
By that rule.
By this
Yeah,
rule,
that 70% rule, you get
You
it.
showed 3 or 4 pictures of existing homes, 2 of which I was pretty familiar with. How do those structures conform to what,
we're talking about.
yeah, to what you
Well, see,
might?
I think, when somebody wants to build a house with 70% of the area of the house be on the second floor, that's a big structure. Okay, so then we want that massing to be centralized. In other words, we don't want it at one end, we don't want it at the other end. But then in the town there already exists numerous buildings, numerous houses with this, a small second story, less than 20% of the FAR. That would, if we adopted this rule without having a separate rule for less than 20% of FAR second stories, we would eliminate an entire, genre of houses which have a small second story above the garage. It would, and what we passed today, if we adopted this rule without saying, we wouldn't have been able to pass what came in today. And I think today was a very creative example of having a first-story house, but with the additional room that the clients wanted above the garage, the second story. It reduced the overall lot coverage. There were a lot of positive things that came out of that design that was presented today, and there are a lot of positive things that come out of adding square footage above a garage. In other words, small areas that would disincentivize somebody from tearing down the whole house. Because if you weren't allowed to build above the garage, on a lot of these houses, people would say, got to tear the house down, build a new house to get the square footage that they want in. So we have to have the two pieces. The one, the person who wants to build a large second story, which is mostly brand new houses, and then we have to have a separate piece to address when somebody wants to take their existing house or a new design and pop up a little two-story section that will be minimally invasive to the surrounding, to the street, the side property owners, the rear property owner.
I'm inclined to agree with you that if we bifurcated in those two categories, I'm in favor of allowing a lot of discretion if it's less than 20%. Maybe we can at least put that to the side if we all generally agree with that concept. Do you agree with that concept?
I do.
Okay, so the bigger question, of course, then is, how do we deal with probably the more typical, which is going to be a new house being constructed?
With
Which is the scenario that you were presenting.
And we have, numerous ways we've talked about addressing it, creating a disincentive to build a house with 2 stories. I don't know whether maybe we need to defer it to the next meeting, or we all can really reflect on it. I know what I would like to do is sit down and list sort of the 10 different options we talked about it, make notes of myself on the pros and cons, and have some reasoned conclusion as to what I'd be in favor of.
Well, I think we can really, I think we're really down to, if we don't want to do the front additional 5-foot setback for either the whole second, for the whole 2-story house or the 2-story
We
portion
haven't
of the house.
decided that. I don't
No,
know
well,
if that's.
well, if that's a separate thing, but I think I'm beginning to feel that there's some consensus on this, on having the 30% setback rule for the 2-story portion of the house. In other words, the 2-story portion can only be 70% of the 1-story portion piece, period, done. And it's very straightforward, very simple. And then having the bifurcated, as you pointed out, for houses that want to do just a small.
But let me ask you this question. If we took the alternative that was suggested by Mr. Randolph, would that alternative approach cause someone who's considering building a 2-story house to build a 1-story? And if that's the case, I'd want to more seriously consider that proposal as opposed to your proposal.
If you're going to, well, I think sorry, but I think there are two. A, it's not going to disincentivize anybody from building a 2-story house. They're just going to push the whole house back 5 feet, and that's it. And then we run into the problem of having a flat, plain front house as they build the whole house to 35 feet, but they want it all. They're going to fight the articulation, or they're going to minimize the articulation. So, and then
Well, let's
to
spend a
the
moment on
second
that.
point.
Do we have any empirical evidence, confidence, faith that if we took the setback would be greater on the first and second on 2 stories? Is that really, do you think that, do we have any evidence that really works?
I have no empirical evidence of that. My feeling is that will not work. That will not, the square footage is still greater. The capability of more square footage is still greater than this 5-foot penalty.
Well, that's true, that's true. Because people want square footage, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I was just,
Well, a speculator, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
And I
just-
think all homeowners are, to a certain extent, speculators. So the more square footage, the higher your value.
So,
But in a community like Gulfstream, it strikes me that it's more likely that lots are gonna be combined so that a bigger, larger house can be built than they're gonna be subdivided. I mean, particularly in sections where you have smaller lots to begin with, it strikes me that not too far down the road, some of those are, by two adjoining properties, tear both down to build something larger. The house that we approved first here, they bought the lot next door to the existing house, tore it down, and now they're gonna, tear that down and
Yeah.
build a new house, with a new lot that will not have any water frontage. What if they had wanted to keep all three lots and build a much larger house? They could have complied with the setbacks, complied with the 70% rule, and, and still have something that's pretty massive relative to your neighbors.
and there's language in here that
Yeah,
speaks
just
to
deal with
the character,
combined,
blah, blah, some of the ways you can deal with that. Also, there's penalties as you get above some of the square footage. What you can use is buildable space gets less and less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything over 10,000 square feet of land area,
Yeah,
FAR reduces by a good amount, so it really,
Okay.
so it does address
I
the,
don't have enough working experience
That's fine.
yeah,
with
that's,
that.
but no, you make a very, raise a very valid point.
It sounds like the conclusion is that my proposal would not disincentivize someone from building a two-story house. Because they put lots together, like you say, in the recently new subdivisions. If the lot is big enough, it's not gonna be a disincentive for somebody to have to go back 5 more feet from the front and sides.
And when
So
I-
maybe you're back to what Hewlett was proposing, to get better articulation on the second floor. You go along with something like he's
What,
suggesting.
and really, I mean, the 5-foot additional setback, it exists. I mean, it's not down in our rule books, but it's already there. It's already there in all the houses that are built. There aren't houses that have the two-story section only 30 feet from the street. They're all pushed back, because that's the only way you can achieve the articulation that's required by our code off the thing. So really, we can just take that 5-foot thing off the table. It would just make it easier for Bill. If somebody came in and wanted to build 2 stories at 30 feet from the road, he could just say, well, here's the setback, it's 35 feet. Boom, end of story. It just makes it simple for him.
Again, I don't like that idea, but, a
That's-
suggestion, why don't we?
But we could eliminate that. But I don't think we even need to bring that. We can just forget that one.
It doesn't seem like we have enough time to wash through this completely.
Right.
And I'm offering a thought that you take the language that Hewlett has drafted and forward that to Marty Minor to perhaps,
Who's Marty Minor?
I'm sorry, to our outside consultant,
Yeah.
Marty
Art
Minor.
Design Studios.
To the
to-
He's
planner.
an architect.
Yeah.
Planner.
Planner.
Okay.
Represents the town.
Yeah, and see what his thoughts are on it in addition, and then all of you do the same thing.
Right.
And we're just not positioned well enough to conclude this matter today, in my opinion.
My mother asked me, gee, Stan, do you think my house is a scraper? I mean, whoever buys it's gonna tear it down and build something else. And I'm pretty familiar with the house, over, under, around and through, and it strikes me that they've got quite a bit of, I mean, they could add as a second story wing if they, and still stay within the 70%
Yeah, they are.
guideline,
Oh, yeah.
well within the setbacks and that sort of thing. And, I just, she doesn't have any need to add a second story, but somebody who buys it, might rather do that than tear the whole thing down and build it, build from scratch. And it was more of a theoretical question, but, I can't help but think we're trying to fix a problem that we don't have yet.
I think we have a problem.
We have a problem.
We will, we have and we will have.
Yeah, no,
There's no question.
it's been presented to us.
But, by the way, I can tell you that little town I live in, well, I guess not so small, the village of Southampton, they're going through exactly the same problem. The village lots are bigger, but not that much bigger, and they're building these these were, before there were one-story houses, 2,200 square feet, now they're building houses 43,000 square feet.
Just drive down Ocean Boulevard in Del Rey, and you can see what's happening with small houses that are, being replaced by monoliths.
And that's what we have to prevent.
And by the way, and the village of Southampton is as concerned as we are, and they're trying to address it, and actually, I've scheduled some meetings with some people on their review board.
We'll sell our knowledge to them.
Yeah, well, yes, but I'll gladly, I'm a sponge, I'm glad to steal somebody else's good ideas, because if they work, I don't have to be the author.
To some it's plagiarism, to others it's inspiration.
Don't tell principals that.
So, but let's go back to Mr. Thatcher. I think that, I like the proposal, working with your suggestion that we take your, and can you circulate it?
No.
Okay.
Why doesn't Mr.
The senior-
Kent give it to, forward it to Rita?
Yeah.
And Rita will handle it from there.
Okay, good.
Good
Yeah,
idea.
of course, yes.
And she
Yeah.
will probably distribute it to you
Yep,
and to Marty Meyer.
Good.
very good.
Perfect.
So a motion would be to defer until those things have been accomplished and you bring
Yes.
it back at the next meeting?
Yes.
Uh,
I won't be here for the next,
That's a great approach.
for July, because Maine is an entire day trip away. And then I'll be in Turkey for the September meeting. So,
My
Well,
heart
but
breaks
so-
for you.
Back.
what's that?
My heart breaks for you.
That's it, oh, I know.
But they will have your proposal.
They'll have a proposal.
Well, I think, while you won't be here, you certainly have articulated,
Very well.
committed to writing your views. So I think it's clear where you're coming from.
Yeah, it is.
And so that's very helpful.
So you might even want to modify it.
No, I don't think he does, Bill.
No?
No.
Well, no, I was gonna say,
No, I'll point it as is. Let's go.
Okay.
Okay, that was a bad idea.
I think just,
Just throw it out.
I think just the most important thing, the front thing, but the side, getting the second story, because it really, I don't think that there is, we've tried different disincentivizing things and incentivizing people to do certain things, and it just doesn't work. The
So,
only way we can really.
the other thing I would ask Mr. Meyer to do, if he embraces this concept, that you look at it in the context of where else we have to make changes, because sometimes we plug one hole and create another new problem. Any other business?
Not for me, Paul.
So that's a motion to defer until the
Yes.
next meeting?
Okay.
Do we,
Next.
Meeting is
we
finished.
didn't need a motion, we didn't need a vote on it?
No, it's a consensus.
Okay.
No, I like that.
Goodbye, Mr. Randolph.
I have to go to Wiki, what is it, Wikipog, and see what the difference is between motion and consensus.
Well, we use it interchangeable, what do we need
But
to
you can
do?
turn it into
Interchangeable.
as I say, a form of concept.
All right,
No,
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Rita.
You're welcome.
Congratulations
Thank you all
on
for
your
showing up.
award.
Well, thank you.
I await the call. Safe travels.
Thanks for coming, I appreciate it. So I'll see you in July?
Yeah.
Oh, great. You'll be here in July?
I expect to be here, yeah.
See you, Bill.
See you.
And I think Mrs. Smith will be here.
Good
job.
Oh, thank you very much.
You spend a lot of time on this, don't you?
Yeah. Well, by the way, to give you a history, you've been involved with this board
Yeah, it was,
many years.
I think I was on from '96 till 2000, I did the
Three terms.
3-year terms.
Three?
2-year terms.
No.
3-year terms, that's right, 3-year terms. So, oh, thank you very much. And yes, so 9 years, and then I just came back on November?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Rita, how long have you been here?
Over 25,
October.
and then,
And the last 5
Then
feel like
20.
35.
yeah, right. Then 20 years before that in
You know,
Ocean
it's
Ridge.
rich.
I don't know.
Oh, I forgot that, yeah.
So for 45 years, I've been playing with this.
Nice. But you've also had the opportunity to travel.
Yes, I traveled for 5 years in my Airstream, lived in it,
Yeah.
didn't have anything else, sold the house, bought the Airstream and a new Buick Electra, and took off. Enjoyed every minute of it,
That is.
You said you had a great time doing that.
yeah.
Anyway, it's hard to imagine. I mean, that is just.
I retired at, in my 30s. So I was young enough that I was still able to hike, you know, and do those things, which was
And you
nice.
really did see the country, did you not?
Oh, yeah, in Canada. Didn't go to Mexico,
I don't know.
didn't really want to. But, yeah, I was all over the United States and Canada many times. And never took a hookup for utilities unless we had to have the car serviced or something. We lived in the national forests and the national parks, state parks, and of course back then they had little roadside tables every once in a while in those days, you know, unattended, but like a,
Picnic area.
yeah, only it wasn't developed. It usually had a turnout and a table.
Right.
They still do down in Appalachian.
Yeah,
On the,
Yeah.
Appalachian Trail.
and we
See
felt
the
very
photos.
safe. We'd pull sometimes if we weren't near a park or something. We'd pull off in one of those and stay for the night. Yeah,
In those days, you really were safe. I mean, there wasn't really a
Yeah.
real concern.
the only thing that we had was that's when the hippies were on the road.
They steal stuff, maybe?
Yeah,
Hells Angels.
But
didn't
the,
run into any of them, but they were prevalent. Yeah,
but the hippies were more, you know, they needed something as opposed to
yeah.
doing violent acts, right? Except for that
Yeah.
Manson guy, whatever he was.
Unless they were on drugs or something, you did see that once in a while. Got a little hairy one time in Yellowstone. It was off season. we were parked where we were supposed to be, and there were some hippies that were camping in there, and we didn't pay attention to them until they got kind of rowdy, and next thing we know, one of them has a hatchet, and he's attacking one of the trees behind us.
You thought it was
Well,
like
let me
accident
tell you.
or something, or his acid was acting up on him?
Yeah, that was exactly what it was. Fortunately, the ranger came by, and they took them away, but that was really the only really dangerous time.
And it was more with just a weapon as opposed to going after you. It was,
Oh, yeah,
it was just a
right.
whack-up.
He was
So-
attacking the tree, but,
Well,
So you're going
I've
on
been
to
attacked by
church?
trees.
Yeah, take them all.
I was probably doing the same thing he was.
Also, you were Istanbul, I assume.
Starting
When
to
the
stumble,
architects
and then,
left
a lot
his
of
cut
complexity.
world slab
Yes.
on there.
Like-
They,
Are you doing a
is that
simple one or-
intentionally planned?
No,
to
it's
come
not.
I
down?
asked them
Did
to
what?
leave
Through
it
the
Oh,
middle.
okay.
Oh.
For the,
That's
for the commission
Oh,
to
yeah,
look
yeah,
at.
okay.
So
They
it's
do
sort of
good
like
things.
a nerve.
in that case, I think I'll explain myself.
Do you know where you're staying in?
Istanbul, don't have a hotel yet, do you have a recommendation?
I do.
Where are you going?
To Turkey, Istanbul, and then cruise the Black Sea. My mom loves to travel, so she's getting to the point where, so my sister I go with. So, and she loves it, I mean, she's just in heaven.
So the Four Seasons, there's two properties. One is a smaller property, which is very quaint, good location. I was there,
The small one.
about 20 years ago with Bill Weiss. It was beautiful. And it was previously someone's private home, and then when the politics changed in the country, it became a prison for political opponents. and then it got restored by Four Seasons. So it's not a big, gigantic building, but it's a charming little,
Attractive spot.
yeah, and nice rooms, and, you know, depending on what you like, some people like the big gigantic.
No, I think, yeah,
So,
absolutely, I'm with you on the small.
Rita, I will see you in July.
Very good.
So what are we gonna be addressing then, in terms of applications? You seem to think that we're gonna have. one.
Yeah, in fact, I've already got a couple.
What's happened with the properties over here?
You
I know he had the right to clear one of the, Bill on one, but has he proposed the other?
Which
You know,
one?
the property's getting split.
Oh, that's, yeah, that whole thing has already been approved. All they have to do is come in and get the building permit.
Oh, that's right, because we,
Yeah, so they don't look massive.
yeah.
And so I just,
They changed the design between the time it went to this board and
This is
the
gonna
time it
be
went,
very
But he did have to
helpful
come back to us,
No.
which I never understood, but.
no.
It's hard to
Not
piece
that
all
against
these
it.
things
Yeah.
together.
Because I knew what the outcome was.
Manual and trivia.
One would be
You can't
a
participate
single
in the
family, a one
conversation.
story, and
You'll
one was
also
gonna
be
be.
That's
doing
right.
That's all done.
And that's all approved, and I assume they're drawing the structural drawings probably, and will come in with, for a
And
building.
I guess we'll see the other, property adjacent to the one we approved sometime soon, right? On Polo?
Well, I asked them about that, and they said that,
Polo
They
and
were-
Palm, I mean,
they weren't planning to do that right away. So, I don't know, it could be a long time. What will come at the next one is, remodel, it's actually, apartments over the garage, or, I don't like to use the word apartment, it's housing over top of the garage. And one is a, no, it's on this side, and the garage is already there, and they wanna put a, second story on it. And the other one is building a garage with the living quarters above it, the whole structure. There's already a house. They're
And they
just-
have room to build a garage and.
Yeah,
is it what district, core, Ocean West?
it's, one of them is on A1A. It's, strangely enough, it's in the core, but it's along A1A. There's a little arm of the core that goes down to A1A. So those core restrictions apply, whereas the next door neighbor is,
Then it's Ocean
yeah,
West.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So it's probably one, is it north of Lakeview or south of Lakeview? It's the lake south of Lakeview, is everything to the north of Lakeview?
To tell the
that,
truth,
look
I
at
don't
those.
remember.
Okay, but it's is it one of the big lots that's sort of north, or is it one of the ones that's along between A1A and Oleander?
One of them is between A1A and Gulfstream Road,
Okay, big lot.
yeah. And the other one, as a matter of fact, the other one is, the next lot north of Seaside
Builder.
2 lots that we approved.
So the White House that's on the corner of Lakeview and A1A. That White House is there.
I don't think it's on Lakeview. Oh, I don't know, maybe, it's directly north of
The Seaside Builder.
the Seaside, the two homes.
Oh, north. Oh, that's the house that has that huge driveway.
Yeah, what's the
Going
name?
in Candace Freeze.
Yeah, she had that.
Yes,
house. Yeah,
yes.
That house, yes.
Candace Freeze.
Sorry, that's the south.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. They have a lot of,
Peter, tell me, on Polo, by definition, they're gonna have to tear down, they tore down one house, they're gonna have to tear down the second.
Right.
When you start the construction on the first.
Yeah,
What is the regulations within the core district or each of the districts regarding tearing down and rebuilding restoring within some period of time. I mean, we can't just stay as a,
Well, what we'll make them do, unless they're, can show that they're getting ready to come in, to build on that, we'll do like we did, down there, trying to think of their names, when they didn't go ahead and build out on that nice point lot.
yeah,
that-
down here, where they, yeah.
Yeah,
On Paul?
we made them, put in irrigation and,
Maintain the property.
and sod it.
Which we didn't do with this house that was torn down with Dr. True's old house.
Well, they were in with a design for a house. They had it approved.
Got it. That's-
So they,
You think of it as Dr. True, my mother thinks of it as Be True.
yeah,
Let's be sure.
that was her name.
Well, yeah, no, I know, I,
Well, one of the advantages of having that second lot vacant is they'll have a lot of space to park the trucks and all
Right.
that, and so that might be.
Yeah.
And they mentioned that, some time ago,
That
that
will
they
really-
wouldn't have a problem with the cars parking on the streets, because they were gonna have plenty of room there.
Boy, that's an ideal situation.
I was talking to Bill before the, meeting, you know, just trying to understand what the motivation was, you know, to tear down that house, kind of shift over. And they just wanted more waterfront.
Waterfront, yeah.
Period, you know?
Yep, that was it.
And, I was wondering how imminent the development of the new lot, you know, that won't have any frontage at all, waterfront.
Well, it's in the same family, so,
Maybe he's having second thoughts about
Well,
having
they
his
could build a
in-laws with
spec
him.
house there, and they could, you know,
could be, I would, certainly would have.
Okay, everybody.
Okay,
Thank you.
have a
When do you
good
head
trip.
back north?
Oh, I'm gonna go back, the way my planes work, is I come in at, get here around 7:30, and then in order to catch a plane, I have to do, it's like at 12 o'clock and I'm rushing. And so the heck with that, and I'll just spend the day, I have to go to the B&T and deal with some issues there anyway.
Oh, and then leave tomorrow.
And I'll leave first thing in the morning.
Well, have a great summer. See you.
Thank you. Maybe if I get up to Maine and see Johnny and Noni,
Yes,
I'll call you.
absolutely.
If I get up there, I'll call you. Rita, thanks.
Glad everybody could attend.
Yeah, sorry about that, Rita.
It's
I thought it was
a
all-
good day if we have a quorum in the summertime.
well, I'm glad I was able to be. It's
Well, I'm glad you were
always,
too.
always interesting.
Let us hope it continues to be. Let's see, what are you gonna
There's no way
do?
to print from that thing, is there? Well, I have the file on email, I have everything on file, if you just want to email him right here, and it's on there too. You just want to email him